The secondary air scrubbers didn't just whine. They shrieked, a metallic death rattle that shook the floor plates of Diagnostic Sector 4. Red strobes painted the human's face in rhythmic, bloody intervals. Then came the heavy, final thud of titanium bulkheads sealing every exit. "Did I fail?" Solene asked, her voice steady as the alarm screamed. "Have you ever considered what happens when the mundane reality of a single species violates the chemical safety laws of an entire academy?" I found out the hard way. The steam from her ceramic cup was still curling in tight, white ribbons then, 15 minutes before the sector went dark. Solene arrived late, smelling of roasted beans and damp earth, looking entirely too small for her oversized academy flight suit. I adjusted my proctor's vest, my chromatophores shimmering a nervous, translucent green. This was my first solo evaluation cycle. The Academy's diagnostic chamber was a masterpiece of sterile engineering, designed to cradle the fragile respiratory needs of 100 different species. Oxygen is an industrial necessity in the galaxy, handled with lead-lined gloves and reinforced tanks. We keep it at trace levels, no more than 2%, to prevent the slow, caustic rot of organic tissue. Solene didn't look like a walking catastrophe. She looked like someone who had spent the morning fighting a losing battle with a transit map. Before she even reached the diagnostic platform, she stopped at the heavy-pressure door. She ran a calloused thumb along the black rubber gasket, her eyes narrowing at a microscopic fracture in the seal. "You've got some pitting here," she said, her voice raspy. "In Chicago, we'd call that a whistle leak waiting to happen. Moisture gets in, the metal gets soft, and then, well, then you're swimming." I tapped my console, urging her forward. My career depended on a clean, efficient data set. "Please step into the field, cadet. Your beverage remains outside the scanning perimeter." She set the cup on a steel side table. The ceramic was chipped near the rim, a jagged white tooth against the dark glaze. She stepped onto the platform, her posture slouching with a casual disregard for the 3 million credits worth of sensors currently mapping her cellular architecture. The diagnostic grid flared to life, a curtain of orange light that swept from her boots to her messy hair. I watched my primary monitor, expecting the usual steady curves of a bipedal carbon lifeform. The console registered a spike, or what I assumed was a hardware glitch, the moment the light touched her chest. The sensors didn't just report data. They recoiled. The green stability line on my readout fractured into a jagged, angry crimson. The system was detecting an active, sustained chemical fire burning inside her thoracic cavity. Every time she inhaled, the oxygen levels in the localized field vanished. Not a leak, a consumption. My assistant, a young Vayanthi whose gills were already flaring in agitation, whispered over my shoulder. "The oxidation rates, Proctor. It is a Class A corrosive event. Her cells are using it as a catalyst." "Cadet Solene," I said, my voice tight, "your internal oxidation levels are high enough to liquefy a standard engine block. Are you in pain?" She blinked, her hands tucked into her pockets. "I'm a little thirsty. Is the air recycler broken? Feels a bit thin in here." The thin air she was complaining about was the galactic safety standard. She wasn't dying from the corrosive gas. She was starving for it. I manually overrode the safety buffers, forcing the sensors to ignore the fire flash and read the intake data directly. The screen didn't refresh with a correction. Instead, it displayed a single stagnant figure that seemed to vibrate with its own impossibility. Which meant, or perhaps my linguistic processors simply failed, the numbers were exactly what the sensors claimed. Pris, my assistant, was barely 24 cycles old. He retreated to the far corner of the console, his gill membranes turning a sickly, translucent gray as he watched Solene's chest rise and fall. He didn't see a student anymore. He saw a localized atmospheric collapse. Solene reached out, her fingers brushing the chipped rim of her ceramic cup. She blew a soft puff of air across the surface of the dark liquid, watching the steam ripple in a lazy, rhythmic circle. Cadet, I said, my voice barely audible over the increasing roar of the air scrubbers. The trace levels of oxygen in this room are currently being consumed at a rate that suggests your biology is powered by active combustion. What is the baseline concentration on your homeworld? She leaned forward, her hands wrapped around the warmth of the clay. 21%, she whispered. We breathe 21%. Is that a problem? The Academy's Central Intelligence didn't wait for my input. The knowledge of a 21% concentration was processed as a catastrophic breach of chemical safety protocols. At 11:09, the internal sensors in Sector 4 registered her exhalation as an active toxin leak. By 11:12, the air recyclers for the entire wing began a desperate, doomed attempt to scrub the fire from the air, causing the pressure to spike until the pipes groaned. The air didn't just smell like ozone anymore. It smelled like the end of a world. At 11:15, the escalation reached its peak. The structural AI determined that the contamination was too aggressive to filter. Red emergency lights bathed the room in a strobe of panic as the primary magnetic locks engaged. With a sound like a thunderclap, the 6-ton titanium bulkheads slammed into their grooves, sealing us inside the diagnostic chamber. The vibration was so violent it knocked a stack of data slabs off the counter. But Soline didn't flinch. She just watched the dust motes dance in the red light. The sector died. The humans stayed. I sat back, my 3 hearts hammering against my ribs. I had spent my short career believing that life was a delicate, static equilibrium where every cell is a permanent resident of a peaceful system. I looked at the human, whose very existence was a violent, ongoing chemical reaction against the laws of the universe. She wasn't an engineer.